Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Vlemincx with us today. Ev is, or Eve, should I say, is a strategic law firm advisor. I'm saying Ev because she's from Belgium. It's French way to say it. She's a lawyer, Stanford GSB facilitator, Harvard Business Review advisor. She's been featured in Women in Line 2024. She's all about leadership innovation. She's founder and CEO at Elevate Advisory, occupies a bunch of other roles as well. So I'm excited to talk to her today. The podcast is presented to you by podpire.com. If you want to start your podcast, monetize it through AdSense, through lead generation, and getting sponsors to pay you, you can go to podpire.com. We have a free ebook and a masterclass for that. Ev, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Thank you for having me. I'm working on several things and all about leadership and innovation and transforming organizations in better places to work.
So tell me about who you are. Who's Eve? How did you get started in life and how did you get into entrepreneurship?
How I did get started in life. How far do you want me to go?
Well, you started as a lawyer, right? Which is a pretty rigid career. And then you merge into entrepreneurship. So it's like who you are as an individual. Let's start with that.
I started as an attorney. I worked in big law. I worked in mid-sized firms, and the law is a very rigid, conservative industry. While I'm a very innovative spirit, and I was like, certain things we can do better, and that's why I embarked on my business school journey, looking for answers outside of the industry to implement in the industry, so can we can really do things better. I found the culture a challenge. Well, law is not an exception there because most law firms struggle with it. Well, most companies struggle with it.
Right. And entrepreneurship, was that your vehicle to innovation? And are you still a lawyer and attorney?
Currently, I don't practice, but of course, I mainly work in the legal industry or in the legal field.
All right. And okay, what do you do nowadays? Why are you interesting?
Why I'm interesting? Well, some say I always challenge the status quo. I'm a moonshot thinker. I don't I dare to challenge what people think is normal or standard. I don't, well, I'm very have a strong opinion on things and a clear view. I'm a visionary, and I really try to implement that knowledge in organizations to make them better. So, and when it's about innovation, everybody focus on technology and all those things, while often it's really about the humans in organization.
Right. And what's your take on AI overtaking humans potentially in the next couple of years and decades?
When it's about AI and all those stuff, of course, I find those fun, but I look at them and those tools as a catalyst for real change. That was already needed long before that. The humans need different skills, other skills. We need to work different. That doesn't mean AI is going to replace the people. Of course, certain jobs will be replaced, others will be created. We need new skills, but we need change that was already long due.
Right. And in corporations, you've been part of big law, like you mentioned. Do you think that big law, big corp is going to scale in the age of AI? And do you think that people have their opinions in these large organizations, or is it still a big corp that gives the orders, calls the shot, and employees just follow what the big boss has to say?
But I don't believe in the control and command type. If you mean now, big corporates, they have a rigidity while they should really focus on agility and resilience. And that's often something that you see more in mid-sized companies or mid-sized firms. They are much more resilient. If today they decide something, the day after tomorrow they can execute upon it. While the big corporations struggle there much more.
Right. What difference are you seeing between Silicon Valley and EU startup ecosystem?
It's difficult if it's difficult to summarize because if it's about, for example, purpose-driven organizations, if you look at Silicon Valley, that discussion is held very different. It's no longer about do we need it, it's about how can we implement it, how can we execute. Of course, the companies in Silicon Valley have other challenges. That's also what we read on in the newspapers and the media lately. But they have other challenges, but certain discussions are held very differently.
And what are you seeing in the legal tech landscape, and specifically AI's role into legal tech and how it will scale?
There's a lot of talk there. I do think a lot of opportunities are still left unused, and there's still a lot of room for improvement. It's very much still focused on commodities, very much. And also, everybody looks at each other and maintains the status quo. There's a lot of innovation, there's not a lot of disruption, which is quite different. And so, uh, yes, a lot is going on, and at the same time, not that much yet. As far as I'm concerned, it could be much more.
Can ChatGPT replace a lawyer? Like I use it to send contracts, and I just crisscross review the contracts between AIs. I vet it, and then I'm sending it. Do we still need lawyers, corporate lawyers, to operate a startup?
Yes,
Why?
yes, no
How?
doubt on that. I do believe tools like ChatGPT can be used for inspiration, but if you really look at legal advice, often it's very nuanced, it's very personal. Even if it's about a corporate, it's really you have a certain situation, you need the nuances, and all those nuances is something that ChatGPT isn't just good at. You can have a first draft, yes, from ChatGPT, but you miss that critical analytical thinking. You miss, like, is this really accurate in my situation? All those things that the humans can do and ChatGPT cannot do. Although I really believe in augmented intelligence. So yes, you have the tools, use them, and then people have to focus more on the skills that are very typical for humans, like whether it's empathy, critical analytical thinking, all the nuances, all those things to make that legal work better and quicker. So yes, is there room for AI? Definitely. Will it replace a lawyer? I don't believe it. If
Right.
it's for certain things, I do believe it can be used to get the work done faster, but it will not replace it. Not at this stage yet.
Right. Tell me about Elevate Advisory. How do you make your money nowadays?
I do several things. So I work at Stanford. I'm also affiliated with Harvard Business Review, and I advise companies on and law firms on all those things like innovation, leadership, transformation, how to work better, tackle the challenges of today to be future proof tomorrow.
Right. The innovation keyword, like we don't often use it in the startup field because innovation is like our nature, right? If there's nothing new, like nothing gets produced out there, do you feel that innovation is a word that can sell to corporate, but it's sort of full of rah-rah nowadays?
Well, I think innovation is too often put in the corner of tech and solely tech. While it's much more, it can be different ways of working. It's relevant for corporates, but it's also relevant for startups. Startups, they're often good at a specific thing. That's why they have the startup, but often they lack the business knowledge to really get their company going. So it's a bit of both.
And what about leadership? Pretty much the same. Like as a startup founder, leadership is pretty natural. Obviously, it's something that you can improve, right? And I relate that to interpersonal skills and who you are as a human, not necessarily who you are in the corporate place and who you are in real life. It's just about being a better human being, a better ikigai centered human being. So, what do you teach your folks about leadership nowadays?
Well, we have a certain framework we work with. I don't believe in natural leadership, meaning like, yes, certain people are more skilled in certain competencies and skills from their personality, others not, but you can train them. People can be trained to be more emotional intelligence and whatnot. Plus, it's not, if you, as a startup founder, you have just your personality to guide your culture and your people, it becomes difficult to scale your culture and to make sure it ripples throughout the organization. Well, if you focus, and everybody has blind spots, we often just don't know what we don't know, but other people around us know. And we're all a work in progress. We all have room for improvement. And that's no different for startup leaders.
Right. As an advisor, do you make most of your money on an hourly basis, or do you also take equity in the startups you advise?
I don't take equity.
Why not?
Um, it's it for me it would give a conflict of interest.
I mean, it would
It's
give you skin in the game to have them succeed over the long term, right? You don't, not all of them, because not all of them are actually gonna scale and gonna have a big exit, but I think it could give you skin in the game.
Yes, but that's not my that it's not my role. It's not what I'm in for it. It's not my position.
Right. You posted about World Economic Forum not so long ago. What's your stake on the World Economic Forum? There's a lot of people that devilize WEF for whatever reason. Uh, what's your stance on them as an organization?
I'm not gonna take a stand on them as organization. I do think certain things they publish are very valuable, and they open a conversation that we often don't focus enough on. Like, for example, if you look at the skills of the future, well, the skills of the future, for example, it was, I don't know, a couple of years ago, it was 2025, where they are now. And if you look at those skills, then it's what we need, but companies are still not investing in them. If you look like last week or earlier this week, the report on the future of work, it contains very valuable information. Also about the question you asked about AI, which roles are going to be replaced and which not. I don't think it's always a matter of roles, because people ask me, what about the legal counsel? Counsel, it's not about the legal counsel. I do think it's about certain tasks. Certain tasks in the legal industry can be replaced, others cannot. And it's the same with pretty much every industry.
Right. So I'm reading the report right now. AI and big data analysis, 87% replacement. Technology system, 41. AI can assist but not replace. AI cannot currently replace teaching and mentoring. Why do you think that is? Because I use this app called Pi and is like a psychotherapist slash a coach, and it feels pretty empathetic to me. Why do you feel that some jobs it will, or the report it claims it will replace faster, and some others, more soft skills, human centered skills, jobs it won't replace as fast?
You say it feels rather empathetic. It can feel empathetic, but that doesn't mean that it is empathetic. And it's not because it tells you certain input that that is the input that you need to hear. AI is still very biased. As a fact, it's, if you work with it, it's still very biased. So it replying and telling you what you want to hear, what you need to hear. So there's quite a bit of nuance there. And I think the more important AI becomes, the more important all those human skills become.
Right. I would argue
So
that yes, go.
if you say, can AI mentor or challenge you or coach you on a certain level? Yes, but if you would put it in a graph, a certain level AI can do, and that's where the human, a good coach or a good mentor can take you. It's different because all those things is about that human connection and those human relationships.
I would argue that most leaders and quote unquote coaches, especially on the corporate side of things, sort of fake empathy, right? And empathy is an interesting thing. Do you really need to put yourself in someone's shoes, or can you have boundaries, right? I've talked with a prominent psychologist not so long about my podcast about that when it comes to feeling overly feeling how others feel. So it's imagining yourself in their shoes so that you can help them, provide them time, energy, attention, right? And in the corporate space, I feel that most people do empathy, quote unquote, for money, right? They do it because they'll be a better leader, they'll have a better pay grade, they'll have a team that will stay so that they can make more money. There's always this money bias. What do you think about that?
That's very self centric and opportunistic. Now, empathy, by definition, is about the other. It's about other centric. It's never self centric. So if I do something to get better for it myself, that's not empathy. That's opportunism, that's self centricity. While per definition, empathy is about the other. Now, if you say about boundaries, there always have to be boundaries for yourself and for the other. I mean, empathy is not just like authenticity, isn't about telling everything to everybody. That's not empathy. Empathy isn't about me, it's about listening to you, understanding your needs, and how can I help you? How can I help you achieve that? Or how can my solution provide that? Or what can I do to help you acquire that? It's not about me. If it's about me, it's no longer empathy.
But in the corporate side of things, it is. It's about the organization, right? Growing so that the team stays together and cohesion, which I think skews the empathy model. It's sort of this corporate empathy and this culture rara that we've been hearing in the name of profits, I feel. And I feel that an AI, yeah, that has less money bias and that is there 24/7 for you can potentially also provide that and these human skills, because in the WEF graph here we have professions which I think are really hard to replace, like chefs, sommeliers, artisans, because there's the robotic process. But I feel that even emotional wise, and emotions is like energy, right? And AI also has energy. I think that AIs are going to have rights also in 10 to 20 years from now. I think that AIs can also do a job for that. I think that in reality, there's also humans that are immensely gifted and are really empathetic and have a huge heart. But usually, you don't find these humans in the corporate setting. You find it in an ayahuasca retreat or something.
I think now we are talking a bit in stereotypes. The question is, don't we find them in corporates? And if so, why don't we find them in corporates? Because I do think corporates need people who have though have that competency and skill even more so. That's one thing. Secondly, if we don't find them, why don't we find them? Why are they not in corporates? Because often there's something about the culture that makes those type of personalities leave.
Right. No, we find them in corporate, just it's a lower minority than business and business coaches, for example, and life coaches. I think that's another level. But again, feel that most of these folks sometimes they do empathy for money, right? And people, I mean, business is still very much about money. It's about capitalism, and everything that we do in business most of the time is for money gains. But I still have a lot of faith in AIs being able to listen to humans 24/7 and potentially provide them comfort. And also a good question is, do people really need to feel that there's empathy going? I mean, if it's an AI, it feels like a human. Does it really matter if the other side has empathy or not? Yeah, the definition of empathy itself. So what do
Comfort,
you? Yeah,
comfort isn't empathy. Like you said, I mean, you can talk with a robot and the robot you can have a conversation with it so you feel less lonely. That doesn't mean you can connect with the robot. There's a big nuance there. It's not because you find comfort in it that it's really helpful. And like you said, like life coaches about money, it's not because a person has empathy and they make a living with it that they use that per se for money. It's all about nuances.
yeah. There's nuances, and yeah, of course, we're overgeneralizing. But I feel I have so much more faith in AIs that cost way less than business coach that are there always for you, that know all of your data, right? That don't get tired, that always have energy for you, and that can scale. I think that business coach is probably one of the
You,
profession that's going to be easiest replaced by
Maybe.
AIs. For example, this year I'm putting my yearly goals to ChatGPT. I've had uh, tens, 20s, 30 coaches in the last decade, and I can tell you that this year I'm way more bullish about achieving my goals because I have a chat with ChatGPT about it and other AIs to help me accomplish these goals, to segment them for me, to give me advice when I feel that I'm not achieving them, to give me statistics, right? I mean, a top 1% business coach would certainly be better than that, but how much would that cost me, right? 10,000 a month, if not more?
Well, it's not because you had a chat with GPT about your goals, that you already achieved your goals. Again, there's a big nuance there. Once you come back to me and you tell me I achieved my goals thanks to ChatGPT, it's a
Oh, I
different
achieved them. I
conversation.
achieved a bunch of them. So that's why I'm saying, right?
But
Um,
I think it shows that maybe you never worked with a really good coach on one hand, and I I don't agree. It's AI is so biased at this stage. So
how
yes,
come is it
it's
biased? Can we double click on that?
because it's the input, because of the input. The input is very biased, and as a result, the output is also very biased. There's quite a bit of research on that. And it's pretty dramatic. I mean, you don't even have to have complex conversations with a tool like ChatGPT to detect the biases.
Yeah, of course,
If
there's
I, for
biases,
example, If I, for example, ask, make a picture of me based on everything you know about me, it's amazing what it all knows about me, but it definitely will be a man. The picture will be male, always.
sure, but is that bias or is that reflective of today's society?
No, that's definitely biased.
Well, I mean, if you feed it CEO data, most men are CEOs, right? So is that
Now
what you
that's biased.
mean?
Yes, but it's biased. I
But
mean,
that's reality.
excuse
It's not a bias, it's reality. It doesn't mean that it is right, right? I think progress should
it's
be
oh, no,
installed in
no,
the
come on.
algorithm of
But it's
ChatGPT,
not because most men might be that might most CEOs might be men doesn't mean that all CEOs are men.
right? Right.
That's
So
the nuance.
yeah, that's the
So
nuance.
but if you start from everything as is the status quo and we take that as a reality, then you confirm the biases in the system.
I think that's the right thing to do, but injected a dose of progress. I think progress is already injected in society, and that AI should reflect this reality. Because if we injected bias, real bias, right? Um, I think it's not gonna think straight, and it's gonna distort reality. Um, yeah, I think that it
But
reflects reality, and that's how it should be. I think progress is socially injected in society, and I think that chat will copy this progress as time goes. What should be, right?
I disagree that it reflects reality. Disagree big
Well, it
time.
tries
It,
to. I mean, reality is really hard to describe, right? Even us humans, we don't know what reality is and if it's a thing. A friend of mine sent me a scientific American article not so long ago describing that quantum physicists proved that reality wasn't the thing, but at least it tries. And I think it's super helpful. You know, I think AI is super helpful. I think that most people that aren't happy with AIs are just like not trying these tools enough on a daily basis. To me, I think there's no other apps out there that brought that much value to my life than ChatGPT, Claude, and all these chats. No other apps
no,
in all life areas.
I experiment with them and I always encourage people to do so, but use them for what they are developed. And most people don't do that. For example, ChatGPT is still a large language model. It's not a search engine. It doesn't provide you, it's not there developed to provide you accurate data. It's about language.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. People need to fact check, and I believe that there will be AIs in all of these areas. Like all SaaS that we're using nowadays will sort of AIFI. So if you need like really precise data, there's going to be an AI for that. But yeah, it's certainly interesting. Eve, thank you for your time. We're on time right now. Where can
Thank
people
you.
find out more about you?
They can find me on LinkedIn or on my website, but just on LinkedIn, they can drop me a message and happy to connect.
Thank you so much. That was Eve Vlemincx.